Hey, I'm Sully, and welcome to the Gun Club. Before we get too much into the news today, I want to hit real quickly on a little bit of channel news. First off, I want to thank you all for subscribing and thank you all for watching the videos. If you would, please share them out, share them with your friends, trying to build the channel up. It's a new adventure. It's a little bit of a side adventure for me that I'm working on kind of around my regular schedule. I'm trying to post 2 to 3 videos a week right now, but trying to keep them well researched and on topic as much as I can. As far as what I'm doing right now, I work full time in EMS education. So sometimes if it seems like we're sort of doing a class or got PowerPoint slides or things like that, I know we got some PowerPoints today. I got a really cool topic for you all today. But again, trying to not only make sure that I'm saying what I feel and what I believe, but also that I can back it up with facts and stats, because otherwise, it's kind of garbage. So definitely thank you all for being here. If you're interested, I also do have the locals group, the Gun Club. Maybe trying to do some locals live streaming at some point around my EMS teaching schedule. Again, full time, I write EMS curriculum for paramedics and EMTs after 25 years on the road. So from that standpoint, a lot of that going on, but I also want to do some live streams, get to have some fun. Also looking at doing an online virtual meetup. One cool thing about doing the EMS education, I've actually got a meeting program, kind of like Zoom, except we can run it with about, I think, 150 people in a chat room where we can actually bring up cameras, chat, talk, do whatever. Going to work on trying to set some of that stuff up for some live meet and greets, virtual meet and greets. If you have any questions, I put out on one of the slides our email address or my email address. Please feel free, drop me a question. If you have any ideas, either that or drop me a message on Locals. It's on there. Locals is free to join. Kind of waiting to build it up a little bit more. Again, build this up as well. This is my hobby. It's my passion. It's kind of my get out of the office card, if you would, so to speak. As we look at a lot of this stuff, again, I am very much pro firearms, pro 2A. I'm a believer in it, and we'll get into a little bit one of these videos of why and what my background is on it. But it's something that, there's a lot of people out there that are very pro firearm and pro gun. That's great, but your not so pro gun friends are people who are anti gun or have heard all the bad stuff, whether it's real or mostly imagined. Hopefully some of these videos may either give you some talking points to share with them, or you can go ahead and just share the video with them and they can see that maybe, all of us gun people aren't that bad. Why do I carry a gun? Because I want to come home in one piece. Same reason I bought a fire extinguisher. Didn't plan on lighting the kitchen on fire, but we've got one there. I always tell people when I drive down the road, I have my seatbelt on. Not planning on wrecking my car, but if something happens, I want to be prepared for it. Prepared for the worst and kind of, accept anything else. After 25 plus years on the road with EMS, I know what goes on out there. I've seen a lot of stuff. So from that side, again, I like being protected and I like my loved ones being protected. Pretty much a lot of the people I work with all have their carry permits. I'm a firearms instructor. One of the perks of working with us is pretty much you get a chance to get your carry permit anytime you want. We're going to get into a few other things today real quickly. First off, though, again, I'm going to share out information, the locals community. There's the link to it there. I post over a lot of articles. I copy over a lot of articles if I see about firearm incidents or things like that. Also, any firearm humor or things I find. That's also where I'm going to post any kind of current event stuff. Again, email is right there. And again, we're on the Rumble channel now. Now, in addition to thanking y'all, I will tell you that as we build the channel up, we're going to be doing some giveaways on it. I don't know if it's going to be anything spectacular. It's not going to be, a new car or nothing like that, at least not this week or this month or this year or this century. But I will be doing some giveaways. I've been able to go out and line up some people, some affiliate deals, some things like that. And we're working with them, also with Southeast Defense, which is who I teach through, to try to get us some little swag, stuff we can do to be nice and do a little something to say thanks for sharing out the channel and helping me kind of build something here. Going on, if you do drink coffee, if you're looking for a really good cup of coffee, I'll tell you this. Pretty much every one of my offices has gotten to be kind of coffee brand coffee junkies. They've got all kinds of coffee, tea, cocoa. You can get ground or you can get the beans and grind it yourself. Our favorite around the office is the cold brew coffee bags. They actually make large pitchers of cold brew coffee. We go through about a gallon of that a week in the office with 3 people because we can make that, and we put a little bit of either skim milk for the girls who are on a diet, or a couple of people who are on keto are like, no, I want like half and half, or I want full fat creamer. They'll put that in and a little bit of either French vanilla or something like that, the sugar-free French vanilla. And quite frankly, a certain overpriced coffee house, they can kiss my, well, you get it. But anyway, but Coffee Brand Coffee has been really cool. Also, we do have an affiliate link and a discount code with them. If you go on there and you use the discount code ValorSDS, you can get 5% off any coffee purchase. Coffee, tea, cocoa, they get all kinds of swag on there. And Jeremy's running it. He's a really good guy. He's been somebody who's been real supportive. So definitely we want to support him, support his endeavors. Because after all, we support our friends, we support the people who support us, and he is definitely a class act and has always been one of the best people I know. Some of y'all may know who I'm talking about. If you don't, you just have to trust me on that one. He's definitely good people. So let's support him. Let's blow up his orders with lots of good coffee orders. And like I said, I'll tell you, those cold brew bags are amazing. And, some of the girls used to pick up coffee on the way to work or on the way to set up the classrooms, and they used to always stop at a certain overpriced coffee place. They're now in the office and they're making coffee all day out of the cold brew pitcher. So we have a good time with that. But that's enough of shilling coffee and getting my grift on. But just trying to go ahead and give you a discount there. Like I said, 5% off with the code ValorSDS. Now let's get into something a little bit more gun related besides coffee. Although coffee is kind of a good thing most of the time. We hear a lot about the good guy with the gun. And we hear the story all the time of the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And we hear it and we talk about it, and every time there's been some big bad shooting go on or something else, we read the after action or we hear it in the media, and it's like, we all think, it's a shame that some active shooter, mass shooter, whatever else, and I study a lot of this stuff, and I read the after action reports for my classes and for teaching I do for both the firearms and the medical side, and I get into this moment of, boy, it's a shame there was no good guy there with a gun. And we look at a lot of times when, perhaps there was a good guy there, but he or she wasn't allowed to carry a gun. When I say good guy, good girl, whatever, we could have a law-abiding CWP holder, fully trained and very proficient with their firearm, but they weren't allowed to carry it in certain places. And so, we get into the debate about do gun-free zones work? And that's one of the videos I've got coming up later in the week. But we're going to talk about gun-free zones a little bit and why they don't work. But does the good guy with the gun really exist? Or is it just what we tell ourselves to try to get all these gun-free zone things taken down? Because if the good guy with the gun is actually something that really exists and it's not a mythical creature, maybe, we can get people to recognize it. And again, one of the things I want to do here is talk about facts and truth versus myths, or I don't want to say media misinformation or disinformation, or I don't know what I want to call it, but the media not having the narrative or the stuff we don't hear about. So I started doing a little bit of research and looking for cases where the good guy with a gun actually made a difference. So let's see here. The first case I found, and I just started tracking in 2022, and the most recent one I found was an incident in West Palm, Florida, occurred back in August. A 32-year-old CWP holder shot and killed a 22-year-old man who had pulled a short-barrel shotgun out of his vehicle and threatened to shoot up the crowd at a family gathering. Now, this article was cited in ABC News 13. I thought it was really interesting. Again, a short-barreled shotgun at a family gathering, getting ready to shoot up the crowd. What could or the body count have been had this gentleman not been there? We all know the power of a shotgun. We all fired a shotgun. This could have easily been, an absolute massacre. However, a law-abiding CWP holder there with his law-abiding firearm, guess what? He actually came to the rescue. I bet the media didn't cover this. Well, first of all, there wasn't enough of a body count to get them interested. Sorry, not all of them, but some of them are like that. And on the other side of the coin, perhaps also, we're dealing with a situation that, it didn't make the national news. It wasn't a big deal. So, nobody hears about it. But there it is. It happened. Now, this is one that I think everyone heard about, but I fit in the group and it was in the time range I was scoping through. Greenwood, Indiana. 22-year-old CWP holder shoots a man who was armed with an AR-15 who had opened fire in a mall food court. Now, this was the Indiana mall shooting. I think we had all heard about it. It's, been very popular. The young man, 22 years old, had just recently gotten his permit, had just recently, got all his stuff together. And he ended up basically stopping, again, a massacre. The gentleman who was armed with the AR-15 had over 100 rounds of ammunition. He was in a mall food court and basically, no reason whatsoever, opened fire indiscriminately and proceeded to pick people off. Had this young man not been there, this 22 not only not carried his concealed carry in or his everyday carry pistol in, but had he not stepped up, he could have easily ducked, run for cover, done his thing, whatever else, decided not to get involved, cowered in the corner and just waited for the round to hit him. Lives were saved. There's no doubt in anyone's mind. Now, one thing in the epilogue of this, there was a mall policy there, not a state law, but a mall policy that the mall did not want people carrying firearms. So had he obeyed the mall policy, he would have left his firearm in the car. And we would have had a lot more people shot. And I'm sure the media would have been all over that, going after AR-15, going after the active shooter, going after all these other things and how guns are bad. But again, CWP holder, right place, right time, took action, stepped up, and saved lives. Incident to note that the mayor of the town referred to the young man as a hero when they were asking him about, but he had a gun in the mall. Yeah, I guess it's a good thing he did, because the gun-free zone sign didn't stop the idiot with the AR-15. Didn't stop the idiot who was hell-bent on committing murder. Didn't stop the idiot who wanted to amass a body count in a mall full of unarmed people where he could basically shoot fish in a barrel with his 100-plus rounds. Didn't stop him from bringing a gun in. But now they question the good guy. Why did he have a gun? Well, darn good thing he did. Now, how about this one? Sunrise, Arizona, July 3rd. Man's at a 4th of July party in his own house. One of the party guests, somebody who somebody knew or he was there for whatever reason, pulls out a firearm and starts squeezing off rounds. A gentleman is shot in the head by the gunman. He goes to the ground. His wife thinks he's dead. People are screaming. People are trying to wrestle the gun away from the man. People are total chaos and panic. They estimate 20 to 30 people in the house, including several young children. One woman was barricading her children in a closet, telling them to be quiet and not make a sound, lest that they get killed. Well, the gentleman who had been shot was able to get up and deploy his concealed carry handgun. And again, he's in a house, and he stops the shooting rampage. And then, I believe I read 4 in the chest. So, excellent shooting. The gentleman, unfortunately, did lose his eye, and I believe had some hearing loss on that side as well, and went through quite a stint in the hospital. Now, the incident occurred July 3rd. This didn't get reported on Fox until September, and largely the reason is because the gentleman was in the hospital. Now, he's just at a 4th of July party, and someone whips out a gun. And again, the only thing stopping the bad guy with a gun was a good guy with a gun. Now, here's another one. This one is just a little bit up from us. I'm in South Carolina. This is a little bit up from us in Charleston, West Virginia. This woman with her lawful handgun shot and killed a man who had opened fire on a graduation party in an apartment complex. Now, there was a question of whether it was a graduation party or a birthday party, depending on which article I researched on it. But it was a group of young people at a party in an apartment complex. Guy pulls out an AR-15 and starts going after them. Frequently, it was said that one of the reasons that he went after them is because somebody had told him to drive more carefully in the apartment complex because there were children playing. So that prompted him to go home and get an AR-15 and come back to this graduation party. Now, you'll notice there's a little asterisk up there about killed a man. There's a few things we need to know about this man. Suspect was later determined to have an extensive criminal record. Read that again, an extensive criminal record. He'd shot people before. He had no business whatsoever with an AR-15 or owning any firearm. He was a prohibited possessor. He has no gun rights. They've been revoked after felony convictions. Now, this gentleman had one anyway. Gun laws did not stop a bad guy from getting a gun. Being a prohibited possessor did not stop a bad guy from attempting to open fire on a graduation party. Gun laws did not keep a bad guy from about killing a bunch of kids. The only thing that did was a good girl with a gun. Hats off to this young lady. Her everyday carry pistol versus a man with an AR. Kind of like that mall shooting where that 22-year-old everyday carry pistol versus an AR took him down. But this gentleman, again, had a record. Long record. Violence. Felony convictions. Totally prohibited from having a gun. Tell me gun laws work. They don't. Tell me gun laws keep us safer. They don't. Laws, again, great for people who obey the law. Criminals, by nature, don't obey the law. How about this one? South Fulton, Georgia, just below me down here, just outside of Atlanta. Multiple men with their lawful carry handguns shot and killed a man who opened fire at, of all things, a Stop the Violence rally in a park just a few yards from a group of children. So now I want you to picture this. You're at a Stop the Violence rally, trying to stop inner city violence and murder. And what happens? This gentleman is actually a teenager, so he shouldn't have had the handgun to begin with. We'll start with that. Jumps out of a car and proceeds to go charging into the crowd and trying to shoot somebody who he recognized from some previous beef. Well, multiple individuals at the get-together, not law enforcement individuals, mind you, multiple private individuals at this Stop the Violence rally neutralized the threat with their legal handguns. So, again, we're at a rally, downtown park in Atlanta, Georgia, or just outside of Atlanta, Georgia. And what do we have? Private citizens saving lives in a city park. Now, I'm not faulting law enforcement for not being there or not doing something about it or whatever. The guys in law enforcement, they're stretched way too thin. But I want you to think of what could have happened had it not been for good guys with guns. We're starting to see a pattern here, aren't we? Now, there's also a part 2 to this slide as well, and it gets really funny. South Fulton City Councilwoman Helen Z. Willis, and yet that's her name in bold, she was present at the event, She had just stopped speaking, and she has, in the aftermath of this, promised that she's going to go forth and introduce legislation to forbid guns in city parks. What would have happened if guns had been forbidden in city parks? The lawful people probably may or may not have had them, but the murderer probably would have. But on the good side, she also thinks they need to come up with money to install security cameras and provide more security and possibly more staffing for park rangers there. Now, I don't know if the park rangers there are armed or not. I'm not familiar. What I will say is this. Miss Willis, I want you to reconsider. You had just spoken there. somebody opened fire on this event. Law-abiding concealed carriers were the only thing that stopped this massacre from going on. Those same law-abiding concealed carriers are the ones that your signs will disarm. Those same law-abiding private citizens who may well have saved your life. I don't know who this kid was going to shoot, and nobody really does. He did manage to get off a few rounds, but fortunately he was neutralized rather quickly by private citizens, good guys with guns. One more time. Now, this one was interesting. Multiple men with lawful handguns shot and killed 2 men who opened fire at a vehicle repair shop. Read up on this one. Apparently, there was a dispute between someone who brought a vehicle in to be repaired and the shop owner. The gentleman who had the dispute with the shop owner had left. Supposedly was going to get money to pay for the repair because the bill was more than he thought it was going to be. Don't know any of the details on that, really. But we do know they pulled back into the parking lot, him and a friend, one firing out of the window of the vehicle on the passenger side, and one across the hood of the vehicle using the vehicle and the engine block for cover, opening fire on this vehicle repair shop. However, multiple employees of the repair shop actually had their concealed carry guns, and that thwarted the threat, and I believe both of the suspects were in the shooting were arrested. I'm not familiar whether they were hit or not. Didn't really get into too much about that. It was more interesting that these guys pulled in, took cover, and opened up with weapons on this repair shop. So again, if you're a boss, if you're a business owner, if you run a repair shop, if someone gets in a dispute with you over how much the vehicle repair is, and they go get a firearm, and they decide they come back with their firearm, and they decide they're going to open fire on you, your business, or anyone in there, if you've managed to turn your business into a gun-free zone, what could have happened? Where does this go had it not been for employees of the business and their lawful firearms? What's the next step? Because I can tell you, and it's not a good one. By the way, the owner of this reports in the aftermath of it, he now has all of his employees licensed to carry, and they do. Now again, we see a lot of businesses that are gun-free zones. Yeah, probably not a good one on this. Fortunately, this was not. Now, how about this one? Let's look at Portland, Oregon. This was back in February of 2022. CWP holder shot and critically wounded a man who opened a fire on a group of people, wounding 5 people. Now, they were at a racial justice demonstration. There was actually a racial justice demonstration going on. I believe it was dealing with the issue from the Amir Locke shooting, and they were protesting that, and somebody apparently approached them who was a resident of the area and wanted the protest to either move or leave or disband, or they were disturbing his sleep. I don't know exactly what had gone on. And he became physical with them, and they told him, we're not going to leave. You can leave if you want. At which point, he pulls out a firearm and opens fire on the crowd. Now, the fact that he was in close quarters with them, basically right up here, up close and personal, and managed to wound 5 people, just start squeezing off rounds, spraying and praying. Concealed weapon permit holders with their lawful firearms stopped it. They actually critically wounded him. I believe he ended up with one in the hip, and they found him very quickly. He did live, from what my understanding is. However, unfortunately, I do believe a couple of the people who were at the racial justice demonstration did not. Now, we could easily say that a man with a gun attacked these people, and wasn't that awful? And yes, I'm not saying that everybody needs to have a firearm. I think everybody, unless you're, adjudicated mentally unstable or adjudicated as a convicted felon or things like that, I think they have right to have a firearm. But the interesting thing was, here we have people who were protesting a shooting that they had a problem with, but yet they had their lawful concealed carry firearms. And as a result, only 5 people were wounded. And like I said, unfortunately, I do believe 2 succumbed to their injuries. When we look at this, good guys with guns stopped him from shooting anyone else. Good guys with guns protected their friends, their neighbors, their associates, their colleagues, their fellow protesters, their co-worker, you name it. So now if we're going to sit there and we're going to ask, does a good guy with a gun really exist? Is this some crazy thing about the best way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun? Yeah, it's fact. And interesting thing, it's now October of 2022. All of these occurred within the year of 2022. These were all just this year. That's 10 months worth right there that I found, and I found them fairly quickly. Are there more out there? Quite possibly. We don't know about what doesn't happen. You know, again, sometimes it may or may not even be reported. The gentleman who is approaching a woman in a parking lot, and suddenly he realizes she's got a rather large metal bulge on her hip, and he decides better of carjacking her. The mother who gets home from, class, or gets home from picking her kids up at school, who's walking in the house, and the guy who doesn't follow her in, or doesn't try to follow in the garage. Because guess what? He sees what's on her hip, and he decides he's going to go find another victim. Folks, the good guy with a gun is not fiction. It's the truth. An armed society is a polite society. An old sergeant of mine used to tell me that all the time. He said every time we pass a gun ban or a gun control law or a gun free zone, might as well just say soft target zone. And we'll talk in one of the other videos about some of the active shooters, because I deal with that a lot. I read a lot of their manifestos, their thought process, and unfortunately there's some pretty sick people out there. Takes you some pretty dark places, but from that side, again, that's why I carry. Because I don't know whether it's running to the grocery store or running to the hardware store to pick up a repair kit for the garden hose, who's going to walk into Ace Hardware or Walmart tomorrow and decide to shoot it up. I like to have an option besides just being a target. Alrighty, well, thanks a lot. I hope you enjoy the video. If you would, leave a plus sign. Go ahead, share it out to your friends. Share it out to your normie friends. Share it out to the people who think nothing good can come from ever carrying a gun in public. You know, those people who sit there and go, what do you mean you're bringing your gun with you? We're just going to the grocery store. Nothing's going to happen. Share it out to the people who talk about, starting a protect your congregation team at church. Well, why do we need it in church? Well, let's see. We've seen it needed at a Stop the Violence protest. We've seen it needed at a graduation party. We've seen it needed at a 4th of July party. We've seen it needed at a truck repair shop. So, alrighty. Well, I hope you all have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for dropping by. Take care. Be good.